truth is I actually went to the Carson City for a couple of years and to lobby the state legislature there in Nevada, right? And we, not just me by myself, I was a part of a team of about 5 families. We went up there, and the state of Nevada actually passed a whole bunch of abuse prevention policies. Yeah, completely did everything. I was like, wow. He did that, and at the very same moment, guess who was having meetings with church leaders while he was also lobbying the Nevada state legislature? I was lobbying both at the same time. I was lobbying the Nevada state legislature to address the bullying awareness, and there was a safe voice. Guess who spent a week in Nevada lobbying to pass the safe voice because really the critical part of abuse prevention is a safe place for the child to report that abuse, right? And if they think the person they're going to report it to is going to turn out and say you just need to toughen up, which that's the old school, it's a very harmful mindset. No, you don't just need to toughen up. You don't just need to toughen up. You know, how about if you tough guys saying this, and there's a lot of mostly tough guys saying, you know, they think they're tough. You know, what if I was to go and abuse your wife? Are you going to tell me tell her just to toughen up? This is wrong. No, that's not moral to tell a young victim who can't just toughen up, because we know the nature of abuse is the perpetrator is usually more strong, right? The definition of bullying is not just having words with each other, nasty words. It's one has a superior position over the other. That's the definition of bullying. So what I'd like the church to do is to have its people, not just a couple of bishops. I want the whole community, a cultural change. I want them to understand the difference between bullying, one child in a position of authority, abusing someone with less authority and less power, versus 2 equals abusing, you know, saying nasty things, normal developmental exchanges between kids, you know. This is what I asked them to do, and this is what the state of Nevada did, actually. They actually talked about, I went to their training once they put it all together, and actually they put an active LDS man over the top of it. You know that. He was a state, Eddie Abler was his name. He's a state senator from Arizona, and the governor of Nevada asked him to come and head over all the new laws that got passed. The safe and respectful learning environment is what the legislation is called. And they asked Eddie Abler to come in and head that up. He was a mental health professional. He was an experienced policymaker. He was also a mental health professional as well. And he was also active LDS. And you know that? He was a perfect candidate. And I talked to him, and he said, Brian, I know there's problems. My wife recruited him. I'll give my wife credit for that one, you know, because she was at a meeting trying to help, you know. And but I talked to him on the phone, and he said, yeah, Brian, there is a problem. And I said, look, I'm going to these policy meetings with these church leaders. Would you come if they'll allow you to come? You know, and he said, absolutely. I know there's a serious problem in the church of abuse, and I want to be involved in that. And I went to the church leaders, and I mentioned him. I tried to get them to accept him, to invite him to these meetings, these 2 years of policy meetings. They should not. They didn't say flat out say no. But, you know, there's a way a church leader says no. They just kind of stonewall. You know, look, I'd like to invite Eddie to these meetings, all the experience. And it was the soft no, the church leaders do to you. You know, the authority, the patriarchal, you know, let's not discuss this, you know, type of no, you know. But anyways, yeah, and I'll tell you who they did invite to these meetings. It was a church attorney. They invited him. Yeah, they had him involved. Oh, yeah, they had him involved. And I can tell you some stories about this attorney. This is really not the right forum. But I was to tell you what this attorney did to other families of abuse and suicide. Oh, it's ungodly. You know, and the church has hired him to represent them to handle my family. You know, and they told me, our family was a liability concern, and that's why they wouldn't address it, my son's abuse. They didn't. They got angry. The state president, he came to me and he said, I asked him to address the abuse, and you know what his reply was? This is after they told me they would, but then they called. It came to my house, showed them the suicide note, right? And they said, well, can we have a copy of that? And they took it to, who do you think they took that copy of that suicide letter to? Yeah, we know who it is. They took it to the church attorneys. And what does the church attorney does? Their immediate answer is reduce liability risk, right? He never came back to it. He said he would come back in a couple of weeks and never did. Never came back. You know how bad that hurt me? You know, here I am, a faithful member of the church, you know, and my son is dead, and I have hard evidence, mountains of it, and witnesses. And they never came back. You know how bad that hurt me. You know, I can't. I put me in a place, and then I also wrote the church office. You know, to I think Monson, and I wrote them all because my friend said, Ryan, we're not addressing your abuse. You should write a letter to the top leaders and see if maybe your local leaders just aren't getting it. You know, and so I did. I followed my friend's advice, and I wrote to church leaders, and I got a letter back. I got the letter too, by the way. If you want to see it, I've got it. And what their reply was, they handed it over to the church family services, the head of that. I think Slade was his name, I believe. And the message was, you know, they gave their condolences, normal stuff. But then they said, your local leaders are anxious to help you with this matter, right? The whole reason I wrote them was so they gave me a corporate runaround. And you know, when you have just lost a son to suicide, President Nelson, and you're getting a corporate runaround by your prophets here and revelators, I can't tell you how bad that hurt me, you know, and I just can't even describe how bad that hurt me. You know, I laid in bed and I couldn't even get out of bed. I mean, to have two things at once, a dead son and my church attacking me, you know something else. The boys that they did this to my son, they laughed at his funeral. You know that? They sat around and laughed in front of our family. And my wife went to the bishop and said, Bishop, you know, they laughed at us and at his funeral in the church. And the bishop got angry. The same one that said they'd not live in a bubble comment, right? And I've been in stewardship over these boys for 5 years, and they would never do that. No investigation, no nothing. He was the man that was supposed to be keeping my man safe, saying these things. He did. He was in stewardship over those boys for 5 years. At the very time when my son was being abused in his watch. Anyways, I got Katie here. I'm getting going here.